Thank you, Bill. I appreciate the plug. Yeah, Bill's one of those people who said, "Hey, I really don't want to go back and do what I'm doing because my industry is in chaos," as some of you may know from the banking industry, and so that's what happened to me. Also, reason I decided to get into coaching was because I was in telecom, and for those of you that were following telecom and everybody was going IPO in 1999, and by 2001, MCI WorldCom was bankrupt, and nobody wanted to be in telecom. So my industry sort of abandoned me. Thank you, Jim, for putting that up. So Jim is going to do I'm sort of the brief appetizer. Jim has the meat and potatoes, the main course dealing with written communications in your job search or career. So I thought I would do a prelude talking about verbal content. So we'll just take a couple of minutes here. So his is, I think, improve your written communications, or whatever I'm calling this, improve your verbal content to shorten your job search. So Jim, if you'd plug the next slide, please. And I have a book shown there. I will reference it once or twice. So I really just have two slides here. First one, how are you going to improve your verbal content while you're networking? And the second one is when you're interviewing. So to give you a snapshot, obviously in networking, you need to be prepared to answer the obvious networking questions with a goal toward appearing, at least, to be prepared and professional. And my main goal, which I work with clients on in networking, is getting introductions. I'm working with a client right now, and they have a tendency to want to jump to everybody they talk to. Do you have a job or know a job? I call that the slam dunk approach to networking, or the shoot the shot from the half court basketball shot. Yeah, you will occasionally run into people with a job that is applicable. But most of the time in networking, I believe you need to think of it, and it's been successful for me, my clients, to think of it more as how do you get a good connection to someone who's valuable to add to your network, who may know someone or be in the right company. So I have chapter 12 in my book deals with networking, and the book's available on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com as an ebook. So why are you looking? Early on, I went out with a client. I introduced him to a person I knew. And the first thing out of the person's mouth that I introduced them to was, why are you looking and what are you looking for? And the client stumbled. So we went back and I said, this is like the very basics. This is 101 of networking. If you're going to find a job through networking, you need to be able to answer these two questions. So they want to know why you left or why you're leaving. And, specific roles, titles, and industries. And that will help a lot, especially if you have a target company list. How can I help you? Well, if you can give me an introduction to one of these 75 companies on my target company list, or know somebody in these industries these are examples of it, it'd be wonderful, especially somebody at a decision-making level. So that's the networking part. So thinking through preparing for questions you expect to get in networking and having a good answer to those, you'll look more professional and prepared, and you're more likely to get an introduction as opposed to finding a job. If you have enough introductions, the jobs will show up over time. So chapter 12 is on networking, chapter 13 is on social media, especially LinkedIn, and then chapter 14 is on interviewing. So in my mind, you need to be prepared for the obvious and difficult interview questions. And when I've coached people in career transition over the past 19 years, I always say, my objective is for you to come away from a job interview and say, they didn't ask me a single question I was unprepared to answer. So I'd love to see you with a target, an objective of going into an interview that you've already anticipated all the possible questions, and you have an answer for all the possible questions. Then you can be more calm, relaxed, and have good content because you've thought through them in advance. Many times we shoot ourselves in the foot by ad-libbing in interviews when some prepared thoughts would help a lot. And the goal here, of course, is to anticipate the interview questions you're likely to get, and of course, do your best during the interview. So again, verbally, how to improve your content, think through. I do have a chapter, and I've concluded the back of the chapter, which is an exercise. I would suggest all of you, free of charge, if you go to my website, richardkirby.net, and then you put /interview preparation. That's a long exercise on how to prepare for a job interview. Most people get worn out before they can get to the end of it. Toward the end is the elevator speech that I recommend, which is different from what you'll hear in networking groups like this. A lot of times what you hear from people sort of sounds like a typical outplacement template that's been around for 10 or 15 years. And you want to stand out and be different and create interest, and certainly feel very prepared. So richardkirby.net /interview preparation is where that exercise is. Of course, we want to know, tell me about yourself, or why are you looking? What are you looking for? Why are you interested in our company? Why are you interested in this job? And interestingly, this next question, why should we hire you? I actually had a client who was looking for a mid-level job, and the boss's boss said they wanted to interview the person before they made the hiring decision. And my client was like, why in the world would this person be wanting to interview me? And I said, I don't know. Either they don't trust their management, or it's just a process they go through in their structure of how they do the interview process. But regardless, when you get to a person like this and you're working in maybe a lower level job, mid-level job, you need to really be prepared that they may hit you in the face with some tough questions in what I call a stress interview. So by having this person prepared for the fact that they might be basically put under stress intentionally by this executive, and of course, we always cover, why should I hire you? That's the fundamental question of any interview. If you only ask one question, why should you hire you? Why should I hire you? To me, is the most important question somebody could ask in an interview. So it just turned out that this person went in, met with this executive that was way above the job they were looking for. And when they sat down, the first thing the person did was look them straight in the eye and say, why should I hire you? And they rattled off their answer to why should I hire you, and they got the job. If they had stumbled and been, trying to ad lib through that, and would have been obviously uncomfortable trying to answer a pressure question like that, they would have had a real problem. So we certainly want to know, why should we hire you? And then last but not least, when you look at that exercise I pointed you to on my website, it starts off pretty much with, what are the questions you expect to be asked? And then the second item is, what are the questions you do not or hope they won't ask in the interview? And you should have, in my opinion, you should have an answer prepared. Your content is available for every question you don't want them to ask. Like, how did you and your boss get along? One of my favorite questions some people don't like to get asked, because many times there's a boss issue. It's why people leave jobs, is, if I picked up the phone and called your boss, what would they say about you? So, if you're not prepared to answer a question like that, it can be very, very uncomfortable. So anyway, the basic message of that is, prepare for all the obvious questions, the ones you expect to get, and then prepare for the ones you hope they won't ask. And then you'll be as fully prepared as possible. So those were the two things I wanted to share sort of as an appetizer for Jim's information, to be brief here. Jim, if you go to the last slide. So if anybody'd like to give me a call, or actually I have my email address on the next slide. If you want to email me, if you'd like to have a informal chat for 30 minutes, just email me at richard@richardkirby.net. I'd be happy, no obligation, to talk about any issue I've mentioned, Jim mentions, or any other topic dealing with career planning or job search. And the book is shown at the right. It's called Fast Track Your Job Search and Career. And with that, I would stop and just see if there's any quick questions before we move on to Jim's presentation.
Well, Richard, that was a great intro, and it's almost like we planned it.